Okay, 12/10, October 16th, should be Saturday. Yeah, I think that's right. Yep. This one, I wanted to start it at 11:30 because I thought it would be better. Still a good amount of people out here at 12 o'clock at night, which leaves me a little perplexed, but it is a Saturday, so. Started this a little bit late because I was playing Melee. I was playing Slippy, which is very fun, but it hurts my hand. So, I used to play Melee a lot more than I do. But, I used to not have access to it because I didn't emulate it until this year. So I've been playing a lot more, and I'm really bad at it. But I'm really bad at most things, so it's not necessarily the most surprising thing. Wow, there's more people than last time I did this. So I really don't know what the good time is to start doing these things. It's probably just never. Which is probably a good segue into what I kind of wanted to talk about today. I did have actual topics that I wanted to go through. And sort of the first thing I came up with, which, because this is the first episode, I kind of want to talk if this is healthy or not. Is this something that you should do? Is this something that is a positive thing, or that, I don't know, leads to a positive outcome in your life? And not really in the utilitarian node of does this increase your health utility? Or does this increase your happiness utility? Happiness gone up, level up type of thing. But I guess just more of Six, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I really want to put this in my pocket, but I don't know if that'll stop the recording or not. Alright, I'm just gonna put it in my pocket. Oh Jesus. Alright. Oh my god, there's so many people out here. What the fuck? This is crazy. Okay, this is an awful first episode. This should be like the episode 0. I don't know like where to go to avoid people. God damn. I should just start it like when I'm where I want to talk, but then you like miss out on so much time. These legs can only take so much fucking walking. Okay. They're going into a building, looks like. But I will have to pass them. I don't see many more people though. Seems to just be like one group. Okay. Yeah. So, getting back on topic, is this good? And I've thought about this a lot because I've been doing this a lot. I've been like talking to myself, quite a bit over the years. And I started doing this when I was like, all of this is like an outcropping of like having an imaginary friend, right? And more so than that, like, because I think that if a kid has an imaginary friend, eventually it'll just sort of transfer into like another friend. Like you'll just find a friend that's similar to your imaginary friend or that like fits the same sort of criteria, and then like the imaginary friend will just go away, right? And if you cling on to an imaginary friend, it probably means that aspects of the imaginary friend aren't being met with your reality, or I'm not a psychotherapist. I don't know what experts think of imaginary friends, but that just feels like what it was to me. You know what I mean? I hung on to my imaginary friend because, or your imagination in general, because like the people that were there that I could be friends with were insufficient for what I wanted to do, right? God, my fucking thumb hurts.
Ja, det håller. Men det håller på ändå.
Okay, so your imaginary friend, if it persists beyond, whatever age is normal, probably just means that there's an inadequacy that you're filling with your mind, right? I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. This is very, like, solipsistic. But that seems to make sense to me. So, I lived pretty isolated from other people. Fucking skunk. I saw a skunk last night and a raccoon. There was a raccoon that like hopped into a little trash can and like squeezed all the way in. Those videos of like really big fat raccoons, but their skeletons and musculature are so slim. They're able to fit very easily inside of tiny spaces and the like, which is a very funny sight to see, but I saw this raccoon slide into a trash can. It was very funny. This guy was cycling, and he was like, "Raccoon!" I just started laughing. It was very funny. There's that music again. Anyway, so my imaginary friend didn't leave me because I was like living sort of isolated away from other people when I wasn't at school. I lived like 30 minutes, sort of like an hour by bus ride because you had to pick up other people away from my elementary school. So I didn't go over to people's houses a lot. I didn't have friends close by. Wasn't a big biker, right? My theory about, this is a tangent, another tangent, but my theory about biking is that kids never bike for like recreation, right? Kids bike for transportation. It is a supplement to like a transportation system. And so when you see kids biking, they're always biking to someplace. They always have like a destination in mind. Even if it's not like, you know, maybe it's just to like meet up with other friends and then they'll bike to another friend's house, right? And they'll just like keep biking to each other's houses, or they might bike to a place to bike. You know what I mean? Like a skateboarders might skateboard to a place to skateboard, but it's at least some place. And it might be just as ambiguous and, you know, unbounded as like a place to hang out. You know what I mean? But they're always biking to someplace. They're never just biking for biking's sake. And when you live in a place where everything is in walking distance anyways, where it's like a minute walk, every place where you would go to in my town has like a minute walk. You know what I mean? And if it's not a minute walk, it's like a 10-minute car drive. So when you have that situation, a bike is like, you can actually become so isolated that a bike is impractical, right? Like maybe if there was a school near where I live that I went to for, I guess it would be senior kindergarten. And if I had continued at that school, it only went up to, I think it was a K through 8 school, and then there was a high school that was farther away. But if I had continued in that school, I think I got my bike around 10 or whatever, then maybe I could have biked to school. But even then, like, you're biking along a highway, and it's like kind of dangerous. So it's like, no, you know, I wouldn't have done that probably. So you can get in a situation where like things are so spaced out and things are so like inaccessible, kind of, that a bike becomes actually like impractical. I think bikes are much more practical in cities, which is part of the reason why I think cars should just be banned in cities. I just don't think they should exist in cities. It makes no sense for people to own cars or drive cars in city centers and stuff like that. Especially Toronto. Toronto is like so shitty. Especially when you get out to like the more like suburban, or like where there's a lot of intersecting highways and stuff like that, and there's like long cars. It's just so stupid. Public transportation, or you know, biking, walking is just so much more efficient and so much Not like more environmentally friendly. I don't really give. I mean, that's like whatever, but it's just like, just from an efficiency standpoint, it's ridiculous why you'd ever have a fucking car. I don't know why people have them. That was a super long tangent, but basically, like, this is just to say that I was like isolated from people. And the kids that were in the township, you know, I wouldn't hang out with because I would go to school with other people, and, you know, I was already shy in school, so, you know, good luck getting me to fucking hang out with more kids that I don't know their names. So, yeah, this kind of sucked. But, you know, you develop that imaginary friend and you find more and more that it's better compatible with what you want to do than anyone that you could find in real life, which again is like a bad mentality to have because people always bring something. You know what I mean? Even just having like another human being beside you is like such a huge boon to a creative endeavor or something imaginative, because it's like, it's always that like second body that gives you that necessary connection, I think. It can't just all be in your head, because it's almost like you're too influenced. You're too sentimental about yourself and what your sensibilities are and everything. You're like so caught up in the sentiment that you can turn yourself crazy. So here we go, right? Like now we're back into it. This is kind of like an imaginary friend. And what I've been doing for so long is kind of like, you know, talking to an imaginary friend. So the question becomes like, what is this? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it therapy? Right? Is it healthy to do this? Is it healthy to just talk to yourself? I think it's weird. I think most people don't do things like this. I don't think people have this like, talking about like inner monologue. I think most people's inner monologue is pretty much a conversation with themselves. But I think that there's an act of internalization that is weird to me, because I've always had the need to externalize it. I've always had the need to talk like there is someone there, which I do think is weird. I do think that's like not, you know, I don't think that's necessarily normal, to be perfectly honest. So I was just thinking, like, is this healthy? You know, is this that guy's in a rush. Is this like appropriate? I don't know. Is it a good thing to do? And I'm a little agnostic on it. I wanted to come out to the highway so that none of this will get through. This is a test of Apple's microphones. I can barely hear myself. If this is just noise, I'm still gonna upload it anyways. I don't give a fuck. It'd be funny to just have like car noises through like 40 minutes. But is it healthy? Is it good? And I think Personally, I don't really think so. I don't really, I don't I don't really think that it's super positive. I think that you should talk to people. The problem is that like I'm inarticulate like right now. You know, I say like all the time, and there's lots of pauses, and I can't think of a word, and I keep doubling back and all this other stuff. And with other people, it's like 10 times worse. Like I can't even formulate a fucking thought. I just go back on like crutches that I say over and over again. I can't think of what else to say, and I just forget everything, get in my head, you know. It's like so much easier to lose yourself or to like forget what the fuck you're talking about and fall into a bunch of traps when I'm with someone else. So like this is sort of the best that I can do. And again, it's like there was an inadequacy, and I think I'm like not a very well socialized person. I think I'm actually very poorly socialized. To the point now where I have like no friends, basically. Like I have no friends that I talk to on a daily basis. I have no friends that like I have a normal like, oh hey, what's up? Want to hang, like nothing like that, right? It's just people that I knew from an environment where I had to be around them. Like high school, right? So I'm at a point now where I've become so barely socialized to the point where like, you know, and this whole COVID shit has been, I mean, this has been probably the worst thing that could have ever happened to me in my life. Did someone break into that? Oh my God, that's hilarious. I think someone broke into this transistor box, or I don't even know what this fucking thing is. That is so funny. They must have, yeah, they stole something. That is so funny. Holy shit. Okay, that's cool. I don't know if I can call someone for that. I mean, does that cut off power to something? I don't even know what that does. It's like one of those like rectangular just metal boxes. It was just, the whole thing was ripped off, and someone ripped some copper wiring out of it or something. Oh, did I stop it? No, I didn't. Okay, good. We're still going. It's in my pocket, and when I take it out, like I'm afraid my finger is gonna hit the stop button and stop the recording, but we seem to be doing okay. 20 minutes in, I haven't even figured out whether or not this is a good thing to do or not. I think it's what I got right now, you know. And the thing about therapy is like, I think that if I were to call this therapy, I think some people they would be questioning that, because it's like, how can you therapy yourself? And I do actually think that you can. Where it's not completely solipsistic and you're just agreeing with yourself and you're actually like challenging ideas and things. And I think it mostly has to do with like being an organizer. It's kind of almost like not a catch-22, but a feedback loop, like a negative feedback loop, because like I think to do like self-therapy or like self-crit, I don't know, to do a self-reflexive activity like that, you have to be organized. You have to like understand your intake and how to manage it properly, and that takes a lot of organization. It takes a lot of careful deliberation, and people who are set up to do that probably only marginally need it, and the people that do need it are not equipped to do it by the necessity of them having to organize themselves more and manage what they consume, how they deliberate, how they process life, right? They need to like fundamentally change that in order to even do any sort of self-reflexive activity properly. So it's like, okay, the people who are going to do this self-reflexive activity are already the people that don't need it. Which makes it kind of like a rather defeating kind of process if you are struggling with managing your life, understanding what's going on and how to deal with it, I suppose. So I wouldn't call this therapy, because I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm particularly set up to do any of those things. These are just things that I'm discussing and sort of just like an inner monologue that I'm externalizing, because that's how I remember it better. That's how I like manage ideas properly, like better in sort of a one-sided conversation. Which I've always wondered about the address of this, because it's always it's interested me before, and it is a very like podcasty type of, it is more like a monologue. It's kind of like a one-man podcast. And I think what I modeled it on was like the Rick Mercer rant segments he would do on his show. I think that's what I kind of modeled it off of, because I've been doing this long before I ever even knew what a podcast was, right? Before I'd ever even thought of listening to a podcast. And I think I did sort of model it off of like a TV news anchor or like a Rick Mercer Report rant, if you know what those are. Many people probably do, who would ever listen to this. But Rick Mercer was just a gay TV comedian, just basically like a Canadian James Stewart, or is that his name? Isn't his name Jim? The guy who did The Daily Show. He was just he just did the Canadian Daily Show, and I mean, I like him. He's a lib, but I think I'm a lib, so I think it's fine if I like him. Ow. Oh my god, my back hurts. God, my posture is so horrible when I play Melee. It just makes my fucking, the nape of my neck hurt like fucking balls. It sucks. It sucks so bad. And I suck at the game, so whatever. Yeah. So it's what I got for right now. And therapy to me has always been interesting, because therapy to me has always been interesting because it's a weird mandate, I think. It's like heal people of like mental illness, or like help people mentally structure their lives. So I don't know, rid themselves of inefficiencies, rid themselves of like evils, whatever you want to call it. I've always felt that it's a very like strange profession. It's a strange, it's a strange history, psychotherapy and all this other stuff. And so when thinking about this being a form of therapy, when thinking about this being some kind of therapeutic endeavor, you ask yourself, like, what is the basis of therapy itself? And this is just sort of like off the cuff. I haven't read into it at all, haven't really thought or asked people too deeply about it, but therapy is kind of, there's a mandate from a customer, there's a mandate from a profession that it will solve a problem. That there's a problem to be solved, and that you'll get results, and that things will be better. There's kind of this agreement that you sort of co-sign. I guess I'll just cross. and we live in it. Sort of. I guess I died back there. But we live in. We still kicking. Okay. So too many goddamn people out here. The buses are still running, so there's still people on the street. Okay, so there's a mandate. The mandate is to get better, right? It's a results-emphasized organization, kind of. I think that's the way people look at it. People look at it like traditional medicine, where traditional medicine always has, there's processes to traditional medicine, but when something gets really bad, right? Like if someone, to go to the mental health analogy, okay, someone breaks their leg, there's a solution to it that will have a result that you can at least create like a control around, right? Under perfect circumstances, you would set the leg, do the splint, wrap it up, and then in 6 to 8 weeks, you take or 4 weeks later, you do another cast. 6 to 8 weeks later, the cast is fully off, right? To go back to the mental health analogy, you do, like someone goes into a deep depression, right? Well, you can't have a control variant for that, right? Because the depression is ostensibly dictated by both the comportment of the individual plus the context that they existed in and experienced to put them in that state, and both of those things are like incredibly hard to crack, and also it's like there's no saying that even if you did crack it perfectly that they would get out of that depression. Like it might even contribute to it more. And so I think, but because like you're influenced by the result, the turn is obviously to like drugs, is to like pharmaceuticals. And there's also obviously other reasons why pharmaceuticals are pushed as hard as they are. But to me, it's like, I think the results of therapy pushes people to think of a therapist as kind of a alternative doctor. When really, I couldn't imagine myself ever going to a therapist. I think I would just try to get a friend. And I know that's kind of like, that's a little bit of like a meathead take, I guess, or like a very like, small brain kind of meme. But it's just like, a therapist is just a friend you pay to talk to. And I think that like people that go to therapists regularly, like that's like something that people always talk about. It's like, you have to find the right therapist for you, which is like a ridiculous fucking statement. It's like, how the fuck, like why? These people are all certified therapists. They're all like certified, or they should be and that's what I think, fuck, I can't even speak. That's kind of what is so perplexing, because it's like, if you have a doctor who has a doctorate in medicine, right, who's done shifts at a hospital, who's done rounds at a hospital, who's a certified resident, fellow, has a fellowship at a hospital, whatever, like, they should all fucking know how to set a cast. They should all fucking know what the procedure, what the timeline, what the variants are for a broken leg. But it's like, how do you transplant that onto a therapist, onto therapy? It's like, it's impossible. And people are like getting wise to that, and they're saying like, okay, well, you need to find the right therapist. It seems like these professions are completely mutable by whatever individual is approaching them, which makes it seem like which makes it seem like there's no way to regulate it. There's no way to approach it from like a professional standpoint. This always has to be personal. And then you start to say, well, so why am I fucking paying you for this? This is a personal experience for both of us. Like, we're just friends. We've just hung out enough that we're legitimate friends now. And then it seems like extremely exploitative and very creepy. And so I don't know if I would ever go to a therapist. I think I would just try to find a good friend to talk to. And for the most part, like, I think the people that I know have been pretty good about that. Like, I haven't really found people that are completely thoughtless or very blunt or just like uninterested in people's feelings. I think those people only exist in movies, to be perfectly honest. Like, I don't think that like people who are completely gormless and hate humanity exist. I think most people are pretty cool with humanity, to be perfectly honest. Most normal people. But that's also why I don't really like anarchists, to get political. I don't really like anarchists because a lot of the dissolution that comes with forming all of these like consent markers and I mean consent is like, that's kind of an inflammatory word. Not to say that like, you know, but the way they talk about consent, where it's like it's all encompassing, like everything is a consent, everything is all about consent all the time. It makes everything transactional. You know, it makes everything like it's a constant eye for an eye society. It's like barbarity, kind of, right? Or, you know, Saxon or Viking socialism or whatever it is, where it's a socialism that, you know, you're socialized into accepting this level of everything is owned in common, but what is common is the sort of like uncivilized nature of it all. That's a really like shitty explanation, but I just don't like how anarchists makes everything transactional. Like, you think that would be capitalism's job, but it is actually like, once everything is dissolved, once all the borders are dissolved, once all the boundaries to people's behavior is dissolved, the only thing that counts is like, everything is a constant power vacuum that's constantly being filled and then immediately dispelled, and being dispelled by force, right? Everything is constantly mutable because of like a violent interaction that occurs, because it's necessary to decouple the magnetism of interaction, right? It's necessary to say to the therapist, like, it's necessary to constantly remind yourself as you're developing this personal relationship with your therapist that I am paying them to do this, right? I'm paying them for their consent to talk to them. And like, in a sort of anarchical society, like, that would be a constant thing. It would be like, oh, I'm constantly reminded that I'm paying this person for sex, that I'm paying them the value of their labor at every moment. I must use money, power, you know, whatever analogy, I have to use this to dispel the magnetism of what a friendship would be, of what a family would be, right? So I use magnetism instead of gravity because I saw a thread that was pretty funny that was instead of gravity, everything is more so connected through magnets, which I thought was a very funny thread and sort of interesting. Okay, so that's sort of the therapy half of this episode. The other half, I guess, I wrote down, let's see, what I wrote down. I wrote down, cyclical life. So this is something I want to talk about. I have an idea for like a book, or I have an idea for some kind of writing exercise, writing project that talks about like the 3 girls that I've had a crush on in my life, that I've had like a major kind of crush on. And 2 of them was very cyclical, the way that we kind of like that it sort of happened, and in other ways it's very emblematic of like the way that my life works. And this is one of the big things that I've talked about a lot with myself, and this is where like the therapy comes in, because this is sort of a topic that you would talk about with a therapist, and you discuss like, well, why is this happening, and is this a problem, and can you solve it, or can you change your life to accommodate, or what can you do? What is the problem? What is this stopping you from doing? What is this enabling? Like all kinds of things that you would talk with a professional about, who would try to get you through it or whatever. Like, I don't even know what the fuck they would do about this. But the point is that I'm an incredibly shy individual. Through and through, I am very poor at human interaction. Is this a shrine? Oh wow, did someone die? What the fuck? I guess someone jumped? Wow, there's no name or picture. It's just like a hockey stick and like I guess that's a garbage guy's coat or trucker's vest. It's got like the light strips on it. I guess this guy was a construction worker or something, or a trucker. What the fuck? This is getting weird. There's a dog, I guess, in a lot. It's probably just a guard dog. I don't think someone's there. Wow, that's so weird. There were like bouquets and candles and shit. That was weird as fuck. Anyway, I guess someone jumped off the bridge. I can't imagine why there would be a vigil there. Otherwise, that's crazy. So I've seen a crime scene and a vigil on this walk. It's been very eventful. I thought that was like a homeless person's, setup, but I thought there were like beer cans on the ground, but they were fucking candles. It's crazy. This is a homeless person. Anyway, so the cyclical life. And so I thought for the first episode it'd be good to talk about a therapeutic angle to this, and then also like sort of an example of what do I talk about this therapeutic. So the cyclical life thing is just basically that life, before you get out of school is a lot of like starts and stops, right? It's a lot of starting things, and then you get going, you get comfortable, then they end. And then you start a new thing, and then you keep going, you get comfortable, then it ends, right? It's a lot of forced starts and stops because you reach checkpoints, you reach thresholds in your school career. And in my school career, right, again, there's not a lot before this, and there's not a lot outside of this, right? Because of like my living condition, like where I went to school, and also like my personality. There's not a lot other than this, right? So when I was in elementary school, for like 8 years at this one place. I went for 8 years. I'm also like pretty doggedly committed to things. Like, I don't like to change halfway through. I don't like to quit something and do something else. And I was very resistant because there were opportunities at certain points in my life where my parents could have moved, or maybe if like if us, the kids, had to push them, they might have moved on from the house we were living in and looked for something in the city, or looked for something at another place. Um, Ay caramba. Okay, it's gonna take me like 45 minutes to get back. I should probably start heading back, but I kind of just want to keep walking and see where I go. Anyway, so there could have been opportunities for change, but we were very resistant to it. We really wanted to stay in the school we were at, even though it like wasn't a very good school. We really wanted to stay at the house we were at, even though it wasn't a very good house, right? So it's like there's lots of those kinds of things that crop up in my life where I'm like, I don't want to change high schools. I don't want to change this or that. I don't want to. Oh, this is gonna be funny. Very echoey in the bus stop. I don't want to alter things about my life just because I want to stick to them. And so that leads to like very concentric cycles. So elementary school, didn't know anyone going in, except for like one kid. Didn't really know anyone going in. To grade 1, you go through grade 8. There's this girl I really liked, and she liked me at a certain point. There's a certain point where you realize you like them. You start hanging out with them a lot. You really want to hang out with them a lot. You really want them to like you. You start doing things for them. You start like being really nice to them. At least like this is I'm sure other people can say they do the same thing, but some people might be like, no, I'm really mean to people that I like, or bullying is my love language, or whatever the fuck it is. Or I'm really shy. I get really shy around them. I start ignoring them and stuff like that. And there's like a breaking point where it's like, if you're not going to do anything, then I'm fucking done. And this sort of like, this simp nature, like, I think becomes annoying to especially women. I think a cloying woman can get very far with a man. Like, and I think it's just mean, right? It's like, if you don't want the cloying woman, like, you're not going to say that because the cloying does good things for your ego. It's like, it's helpful to you socially and whatever. And you like it. You just like it. And I think a woman, I don't want to generalize, but I guess I am generalizing. But it's just like, I think a cloying man gets annoying if he's not actually a cloying man. If he's not actually like taking the initiative to just ask you out on a fucking date or just say that he likes you. If he keeps denying you, I think it's like, it becomes annoying, and it also becomes a situation where it's like, at some point you just start to believe it, right? At some point it just becomes like easier for you to just say that you don't like them instead of actually not liking them. And then at some point they just become one and the same, and you're just fucked. You're just like, it's just complete fuckery that you've done to yourself. And that's what happened with this person. It's just like, you just deny it so long that it just becomes like, well, then I guess what's the point of even pretending that this isn't real? That it's not real, that you don't like them. Like, it comes to the same. It doesn't matter if you do like me, if you don't like the idea of being with me so much that like, and again, this is like 12-year-old stuff, right? This is like 11-year-old stuff. It's like super prepubescent, or not prepubescent, but it's like, it's super retarded when you're that young. But at the end of the day, she was like, okay, moving on, I guess. You had your chance, moving on. And then got a different, boyfriend, quote unquote. And then it was just over, And I did the like super ultra shitty thing of like saying that I liked her after she had already moved on. And then was kind of like expecting something, you know what I mean? Like that kind of shit. And so, yeah, that happened. And it was really, really shitty. And it was awful. And I don't really talk to anyone from elementary school anymore. The last time I think I talked to someone was I think it was literally like in grade 12. In Canada, they have things called Terry Fox meets, which is basically like schools take the day off, they walk around the city, I guess like walkathon, you would say, like people pledge money or whatever to certain people. You're supposed to go around to your neighbors and collect money, like you know, $1 for every mile you walk or whatever. And then usually what they do is they have all the schools in the district like meet up at a certain place, and then, you know, they might have a musician or something or some food, whatever. Yeah, I guess it would differ on the districts. For most people, it was just like a place to meet up with other people from the schools or whatever. It's like, it's very sort of banal. Like, we're just going to stand around and they're going to have someone say, wow, we really hate cancer or something. It's just a day off of school. Most people, I mean, most years I didn't really even go because it was just like a free day off of school for the most part. Anyway, Bagel Nash. I think like the last time I really talked to someone from elementary school was like, it was the grade 12, my grade 12 for that. And it was like one of my better friends from elementary school just like came up to me and said hi. And he was like with his girlfriend. And I was just like, I was with my friends and I was like laughing. And I turned back, I saw him. He like tapped me on the shoulder or something and said hi. And I said hi back, I waved, but I was like laughing. So it sort of looked like I was laughing at him. It was such an awkward situation. It was like such an awkward thing that I remember very specifically. I remember his girlfriend too was like looking at, it was so crazy, almost that kind of like situation. It was so surreal because like, I'm never a person that's usually approached. So I guess this person was like, well, this is the only opportunity I'm gonna have to say hi to this guy, so I guess I might as well do it. And he did it to his credit, and I looked like I was laughing at him. So I hope he didn't think that I was. Because I certainly wasn't. I would like to maybe talk to that guy again. He was cool. He was always pretty cool to me. He was very patient with me. I was a very like abrasive child to people that I was friends with. So I hope that he doesn't think too harshly of me. Think kindly, please. Yeah, anyway, I don't even know where the fuck I am. I recognize most of these places, but I don't know which street. I think I'm just on... Yeah, I don't know where I am. Anyway, this is already the longest episode that I've done, so it's good. No, we're good. We're still talking about stuff. So that happened. That was like elementary school, and then high school was very similar, but it was sort of it wasn't as truncated, and it wasn't as it was just expedited. It was just oh my god, constricted, because it was only 4 years instead of 8. You know what I mean? So in the 4 years, right, get to know a person, certain someone. At some point, for me it was grade 10, sort of early grade 11. You get to know a person, you develop feelings for them, right? And then there's a peak, there's a summit where both of you like each other, you hung out a ton. Everyone thinks you're dating. Everyone kind of wants you to just get it, like just start dating, just get it over with. You guys are like nice for each other or whatever. You guys are good friends. And then again, it's like you sim for them so hard and they don't, I'm cloying, right? I'm kind of cloying. I stick to people. I don't like other people. I'm very sycophantic in that way, very cowardly. And what that leads to is inaction. There's a lot of inaction. And it's like, the same thing happened where it was just like, okay, if you're not going to fucking do anything, if you're going to keep denying that this is happening, if you're going to keep denying that you have feelings for me, if you're going to keep saying to people like, no, I don't like this person, if you're going to say to my face, when I ask you specifically, who do you like? And when it's like, and the other thing is like signs, like signals, right? It's like, A lot of people struggle with that, I think. A lot of people, again, it's like, I'm not very well socialized, right? I can't read the signs. I don't know what the signs are, right? It's a very murky, impossible, hazy, gray thing to think about for someone like me, where it's like, I legitimately don't know what you're thinking, who you're thinking about. I'm gonna go into this Petro-Canada. I think they must be open. I mean, it is like 1. Maybe they aren't open. No, I don't think they're open. The pumps might be open, but I don't think the store is. I don't know. The lights are still on, but that might just be so that people don't think it's closed from the street. I don't know. I'll go check it out. I don't think it's open. The lotto numbers aren't on. I think that door's locked. But I'm still gonna go check it out. Or maybe I could just go to this Jiffy Lube. Or something, I don't know. I'm gonna keep it running so that I record people without their knowledge and commit a crime. That Circle K is open. Fuck yeah, dude. Let's go. Okay. Let's hope this stays on. No. Fuck. Fuck. Okay, I gotta get my mask. Okay. This sucks. This fucking blows dick. Ugh, this sucks so bad. So disgusting. No. Yeah, and can I get a bag, sorry?
Yeah, that was how my high school was too. But do you ever miss it? Do you ever want to play ball again?
It was so dreadful. It was so hard, and it was so time-consuming and physically exhausting and painful. And I was playing that so much. Yeah, I do miss it.
Like, I think it would be kind of fun for you to get some of the guys that you used to play ball with back in the day and, like, do some sort of game.
Thanks. Well, it's technically morning, so. Okay. Okay, the haul was a Gatorade, blue, color, flavor. Some Circle K jujubes, which are probably disgusting. and fucking some winter mint, 5 Alive gum. That was the haul, boys and girls. And a bountiful one it was. What the fuck was I talking about before I went in there? Oh, yeah, just the cycle. So high school comes to the culminating moment where it's like, dude, you're either gonna fucking ask me out or you're not. And if you're not asking me out, then I'm just gonna believe you. Right? Like, there needs to be a synthesis for what's going on here. There needs to be some kind of conclusion. That you need to move forward. And I never fucking did. I really liked this girl, and then she moved on. And I never did, because I'm the cloying one, right? I'm the one with no self-esteem. I'm the one who can't, like, think through things and just do something. I'm the one who's not socialized well. And at some point, you're going to meet someone who is socialized well and who is going to reciprocate properly. And ultimately, that person is going to be the one you go with. So they also went with a different person. Very similar situation. Another sort of like close friend of mine. The person who said hi to me at the Terry Fox meet was also the person that my elementary school crush went out with at the end of elementary school. She also went with a different person after that guy, though I think they started going out in high school. I think they're fucking getting married, which is crazy, actually. I think they dated all through high school. Also, all of these people talk to me about boy troubles, which I'm literally like a gay friend to everyone that I've ever liked. But another thing to talk about in high school, as an addendum to the high school thing, and this is something that I've talked about with friends, so if anyone ever listens to this, they'll probably know. I mean, they'll know by my voice, but it'll be incredibly embarrassing. But went to high school. I went to a different high school. I went to a Catholic elementary school, which was sort of a feeder school for a Catholic high school that was not too far away. There were 2 Catholic high schools in my city, and the one that everyone from my school went to, most of the kids from my elementary class went to this high school. It was just a high school that you go to. I don't want to mention names, but it's pretty obvious where I'm from. I think I've dropped enough hints. I think I've literally said where I'm walking right now, but whatever. I don't give a fuck. Anyway, so the high school that I went to, or that everyone else went to, I did not go to. I need to fix my posture. My neck hurts so badly. Holy shit. I did not go to. I went to a different school that had something called a 311 car. I don't know what that's for. Called the IB program, or the International Baccalaureate program, which is like an internationally regulated series of schools. They have them all over the world. I think I actually met someone in university who went to one in Saudi Arabia, which is very interesting. But it's they're internationally regulated courses. Everyone kind of takes the same thing. All the tests are taken at the same time so that there's no cheating. Like, around the world, they're all taken at the same time, which is very interesting. I wonder if some people have to like take them like late at night. They probably have like multiple different versions of the test for for students in like wildly different time zones. But you know, it's supposed to give you credit. So if you're like going to study abroad, then there's a metric on which to grade you against other students like of that caliber. Because I think for like, you know, for an IB school to be in a certain district, it also would have to conform to the, you know, the educational standards of that whatever municipality, provincial, state, federal government, whatever. Anyway, it wasn't very useful for me because I went to school in Canada. I went to like secondary school in Canada. I went to post-secondary school in Canada. I think that, I mean, this is probably a little bit of a controversial statement, but I think that it's relatively similar to AP courses. So like IB history is probably fairly similar to AP history. I think people who have done AP history would probably disagree with that statement, but fuck them. I'm gonna say it anyways, and I think it's probably as close to true as I could possibly make it, so I don't really give a fuck. But you know, it was a whatever experience. The thing with going to that high school though is that I didn't know anyone. Very few people who went to elementary. I think there was like one, maybe two people who I went to elementary school with that actually went to the school, and there were none of the people that I was like particularly good friends with, hung out with at all. I knew their names obviously, but other than that, pretty foggy. So, went to Kenner. Fuck, I said the name of it. Went to the high school. Whatever. I went to this high school. Didn't know anyone. For the first 2 years, you're in a lot of like gen ed. It's kind of similar to like university, I guess a little bit. I don't know. There's like general education. You take a lot of courses that other kids who aren't in the pre-IB stream take as well. You're taking English, history, math, whatever, social studies, or not social studies, but like geography. With all these kids, everyone's in there, and pre-IB is like lots of kids get into pre-IB because they basically just accept everyone who applies, and then as the years go on, the kids who are actually dedicated to it, they sort of filter. The kids who don't really want to do it or want to take a couple IB courses, but not all of them, sort of filter out, right? The kids who do full IB, then in grade 11 and 12, go into more specialized, not really specialized, but like actual IB courses that have actual IB deadlines, and they're structured much more similarly to university courses. The problem with it is that I think like you also have to do the requirements for whatever education, whatever curriculum you're in like from a, you know, I was in the Ontario curriculum, right? So I had to do like the standardized testing that gets you a high school diploma in Ontario. And also, I think there was sort of a level of conforming that the teachers had to do to the specific Ontario curriculum in order to like have deliverables for whatever overseeing committee they have, whatever like auditing committee would oversee their work, you know, what their grades are, like what projects they're giving out, like how they structure their classroom, which is not at all what like a university course would be. So there's like weekly projects and tests all the time and stuff, where when it probably should be a lot of like just like on your own study sessions, which is a lot of like what the work is for university. A lot of the work for university is just like studying the books and reading it. You don't really have a lot of time to do that when you have like constant homework every night and shit like that to do. You know, I think that the courses really should just be run like university courses, because I find university courses much easier to map out in terms of the time it takes to be to do well in them and stuff like that. But, you know, for better or for worse, it was like that. So the way that worked socially was that the first couple years were pretty open. God damn, why the fuck is this light not changing? I don't want to be stuck at this intersection talking to myself. Come on, change. Come on, light. I got things to do, places to be. I gotta drink this Gatorade. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. There we go. Okay. So, what does that mean socially? Socially, it means that the first couple of years very open, very difficult to make friends. You're in classes with lots of different people. Things are very fluid. You know, there's lots of uncertainty. Classes are generally large, and there's lots of different kinds of people in them. What happened in the last 2 years is that the classes become a lot closer knit. They're a lot smaller. The teachers become more recognizable, obviously. Obviously, you have 2 years under your belt of knowing some of these people. So there's history, right? There's connectivity. But also there's a forced, like, communalism. There's a forced shared bondage. It's kind of like everyone hates the lunch lady, or that kind of adage where it's like when you give people something to hate collectively, they start to work, they start to eliminate a lot of their differences and work together more. And that's basically what happened, is that the work was so all-encompassing for lots of people, including myself, that like you were forced into these like communal relationships with people. You were forced to make friends with these people. It was very difficult not to. And so, and then right when those relationships started to become indelible, they're ripped out because everyone's going off to university right now. And everyone did the old thing, was like, oh, we're going to keep in touch, whatever. And I was like, no. I mean, these things were forged on paper and they'll burn like paper. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was nothing, it ran skin deep, I think, for a lot of people, which is unfortunate. That mixed in with the cyclical sort of romantic relationship created an incredible sense of deja vu, really insane sense of deja vu for me. And then I went off to university. And in university, very similar thing. First 2 years, gen ed courses, lots of flexibility, lots of uncertainty, right? Lots of not knowing where things are, what people are doing. And towards the last 2 years, you get specialized courses. The classrooms are smaller. Teams become formed. You start working with people on multiple projects. I'm a film student, so you work on film sets, right? Film sets, small groups of people generally, same people sort of over and over again. You start to form relationships with people. People want to start working with you if you do a good job on their shit, right? And I started to, you know, the friendships were coming. They were coming, they were almost there, and then pop. COVID happens, everything's fucked up, no one knows what's going on. You just get lost in like the shuffle of it all, and it's all just gone. And I mean, this shit sucks. It sucks so fucking bad. I hate this shit. And the cycle was happening again, and this time the possibility was in my opinion, that like it could continue after this, because if I graduated from university, right, if this was all over and COVID had never happened, it's like, well, you know, I mean, what happens after university, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, maybe I do a master's, but maybe I like go into freelance. Maybe some of these people that are now my friends, because I've been working with them for a year, right, an extra year, maybe this all works out, and you know, I become more social, and maybe I meet someone, like, I don't know. It's like the possibilities were endless there. You know what I mean? And everything just fucked up. It was such a spanner in the works, And to borrow a shitty British phrase, it was such a wrench in the gears. And like, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. The cycle has been completely broken, and maybe that's a good thing, and maybe I'll start a new cycle, and maybe like something else will happen. Maybe that cycle wasn't meant to be. I don't know. You know, maybe if I actually took a critical look at high school, maybe if I took a critical look at elementary, I'd find that it's more of a cycle than I even fucking think, you know? But that's kind of the cyclical life. And I mentioned 2 crushes so far. I think if I remember properly, I said, maybe I didn't give a specific number to it. Maybe I didn't quantify it specifically, but there were 3 crushes. One of them, so the first one was like the crush of innocence. The second one was the crush of awareness, because I was like aware of what was happening. I developed this theory, I think, in high school. I think towards the end of high school, I was like looking back and it's like, this is the exact same shit that happened. And I remember, I think, one time I was like just laughing. I just couldn't stop laughing, I think. Because I was just looking at this and I was like, I did it fucking again. You know what I mean? When I'd sort of realized how everything had gone down, I think towards the end of grade 12, you know, doing some final projects or whatever, finishing things up, and I just realized like, oh my God, I did it again. That was sort of the crush of like awareness. And then the third one was the occupational crush. I had a part-time job in high school. Pretty much all throughout high school, I had a part-time job. And all throughout high school, basically, there was this girl that I worked with who was awesome. She was a great person, and I really liked her. And this was the same time as high school, so it was kind of 2 crushes going on. And one of them was kind of like after the crush of awareness, my high school crush, kind of like, I sort of knew it was over in a sense, right? It was like she was with the other guy, you know. So, yeah. I mean, there was lots of, dude, I'm such a fucking coward. I mean, all of this shit is just cowardly. Like, all of these problems is just like, I put on the kinesthetics, episode 0, I put like the I am a coward. It's like, this is like my entire problem. This is like what I'm fucking struggling with all the time. Is I'm just a cowardly fucking person that hides behind all these like mewling excuses and timid frames of mind that just like trap you and like keep you in this dark fucking hole where you can't like see past your own disgusting squiggle, like worming. I'm just a worm. W-Y-R-M. I'm just a worm flailing about underground. You know, Plato's cave type shit. And yeah, that's basically the cyclical life. That's basically like what it is. It's just these, you know, it's just these like major cycles that I've seen in my life, and I kind of want to write like a long form thing about it. I just don't. I don't know when that's going to be. I don't know if I'll ever do it, but I've got to lock down those memories before they escape. Before they escape my mind, I gotta lock them all down. And this is sort of part of it. This is a good like hard software copy that I've got now. So this will be good. Hopefully I don't delete this fucking voice memo. It's been going on for almost an hour and 20 minutes. Usually I don't want them to be this long, but I mean, this might be a good starting point, I guess, for this series. So Yeah. The other, I guess the last thing I want to talk about, because I might as well just wrap this up, sort of, is I was reading Plato. I finished The Republic. Plato's Republic. I've been reading a lot of sort of ancient Greek stuff. I read a couple. I wrote Plutarch's Life of Alexander, as well as a couple of the lives that were compiled in this sort of anthology of the lives. The lives are Plutarch's lives. He wrote like 30 of them, sort of, I think, roughly, and a lot of them were like pairs of lives. So I think for the Alexander one, the pair was like Caesar. A lot of it was like some sort of ancient Greek, sort of like 4th century, 5th century, 3rd century Greek guy with like a more contemporary to Plutarch, because Plutarch was like a Greek guy who was born in like the 1st century AD. So he was writing a lot about, you know, Greek guys from like 500, 600 years ago, and then a more contemporarily resonant Roman person, statesman, general, philosopher, what have you, from like in and around the 1st century AD, 1st century BC. So I read that, and the Age of Alexander it's just Greek guys basically. It's just Greek guys, and it's from within like 100 years before and after. It's like 1 to 2 generations before Alexander, and then like, I don't know, maybe like 50 years. It maybe goes to like 50, 60 years after he's dead. And so I read all of those. I read a history, sort of like a basic overview history, nothing incredibly detailed, but just kind of like almost a biography, but sort of, it gives you a lot of some historical precedent, some like historiography as well of Alexander, written by, I think, a Swedish guy whose name I forget. It's a pretty accessible text, and I read that. And then I just finished reading Plato's Republic. Republic, very interesting book. Sort of gives, it's a treatise on justice versus injustice. And Socrates, who is the central character in Plato's dialogue, talks about the original thesis is like, is injustice good? Should you do, is injustice preferable to justice, right? Is justice this like ineffable, essential good that you must strive towards regardless of like outcome or regardless of efficacy, or is it this like sort of mutable, very much like accessory to action that doesn't really delineate any kind of goodness or badness, but is a virtue that is sort of like able to be tossed aside for something that's more efficient, that gives you a greater degree of happiness, a greater degree of wealth, whatever. So it kind of goes through that, and he debates with several different people, mostly like this guy called Glaucon, which also appears in the Symposium. That's probably not what it is. I probably sound pretty stupid right now, but the methodology through which Socrates and the various people he dialogues with, the methodology that they basically end up going down is constructing a most virtuous, like a perfectly just and agreeable state. And basically their hypothesis is if they do that and then examine the people that would exist within that state, and then in like more degenerative states. So after like constructing the perfect state, you're able to you're able to see clearly like what the degenerative forms of that state would be that go closer and closer to injustice. And then if you seek out all of the different people within those states, you'll be able to see like, okay, this is the just man, this is the unjust man, and then you compare them against themselves. And basically what they come to are like 4 distinct states that go from like justice. So like the perfect state for Plato is, or whatever, Plato, Socrates, whoever you want to say, is like the rule of the philosopher kings, an aristocracy made up of philosopher kings. And they actually do a whole lot talking about like the way in which these people would be raised and what would happen with like the wives and children and stuff. And that's a very like interesting section, especially from like a Marxist point of view, because I've been following these people on Twitter and I haven't read a lot of Marx. I'm very interested in him. I haven't read a lot of Marxism. I've read, of course, like the Communist Manifesto and some other stuff. There's this like Socialist Fight Back. That's another, if you want to find out where I am, there's this like Socialist Fight Back, whatever organization that I joined in my first year. And we read a couple things from Marx. I should go to one of their meetings actually, see what's up, if they have any good speakers. I don't think it's a particularly like good organization or whatever, like a revolutionary organization, but whatever. I'll see what's up. It'd be good to join a reading group. At least to be someone to talk to, God damn it. Anyway, I haven't read a lot of Marx, but one of the things that Marx talks about is like the common out, like the sort of dissolution again of a boundary, because capitalism, fascists, they're all anarchists at heart, right? This boundary dissolution of a marriage, where wives and families are held in common. And again, this isn't like, you're not talking about a one-to-one example here, but this is something that Plato talks about in the Republic, is that the ruling class, he subdivides the state into 3 classes, basically. Like the lowest class is like artisans. The middle class is like, they're like mediators between the tradespeople and the ruling class, and then of course the ruling class, the people who like legislate. And he doesn't include like slaves or like, I guess, lumpen, you would call them, because those people aren't citizens anyways, right? So it's like they don't really even exist in the comportment of this society, this state. The state is concerned with the citizens. Anyone who's a citizen would ostensibly like own land, own a business, would like contribute in taxes, and I guess like sharecroppers, slaves, whatever, would not do that. So they're not part of the state. They're not like they're an ancillary to the state, right? They're mutable. They're very fluid, right? Like these people come and go, where jobs, where money can be found, whatever. So. Yeah, I mean, he goes into lots of stuff, like these people would be, from birth, the children would be taken away from the family, and would be taken away from all their families, and they would be brought up like every single man that's part of the aristocracy would be their father, every single child would be their sister or brother, every single woman would be their mother, all these other things. And so it's like a very like expansive, and this is so that they would create like, it would reduce, there's a train passing, very cool. It would reduce the potential for like divisions, for fissures, for like factionalism to occur. It's very sort of like weird engineering, very like weird kind of like utopian social engineering that goes on. And I wonder, like from a Marxist perspective, I would suppose that like from a historicist perspective, like the conditions are probably wildly different, and what Socrates is probably or what Plato is probably proffering is something that's like completely different from a bourgeois conception of marriage. Though I just don't know enough about. There's this other book called The Greek Commonwealth, which I'm going to start reading, along with a Peter Woolen book on signs in cinema. I'm going to start reading them in a tandem. but I like to read books sort of in tandem. So I haven't really been reading this Republic with anything else. But there's other works of Plato in the book that I was reading, so I might try to keep going with it. I'm up to an hour and a half now, holy shit. But just my point is that my point is simply that I was wondering, like, what those two analyses of how society operates, if Marx has any issues with Plato's perfect state. Because it does seem like just a reification of a ruling class, which I don't think Marx, necessarily disputes that, like, in a communist society there will not be leaders. There will not be a group of people who are determined as the ruling class. I think that just like what he tries to instruct, what he tries to bring into his analysis is this idea of the working class being the instrument of history, right? Where history flows through the working class and not through a bunch of like decadent bourgeoisie factions that constantly war with themselves, because ultimately, like, it is the working class on which the brunt of history is leveled, right? Upon which, like, the pages of history are just spilt with their blood, right? So a society that history will reify, a society that history will look to as emergent and optimistic and powerful and, everything that you want in a society, will be one in which the working class has the greatest ability to enact their will through, obviously, like, responsive leaders. And I mean, this is like tanky talk, but again, I don't really like anarchists, so I guess I don't stand for the lifting of all the oppressed peoples. I don't know, whatever. I need to read more Marxism. I need to read more Mao. I need to read more Stalin, Lenin. I need to read all those guys, but I'm trying. The dialogue is very interesting. Ultimately, what it gets to is that, the soul should move towards what makes it, at the very end of the book, he gets to, like, the immortal soul. And the very end, he is explaining the story of all of the souls in heaven and all the souls of earth coming together and looking at the threads of life and choosing, like, the perfect lives, the lives that they would like to live. And the last person to choose a life is Odysseus. And he chooses the life of a simple private man, not very exciting, because Odysseus, obviously, the most tragic of tragedies in the Greek canon is the Odyssey, the Homeric tragedy. And so Odysseus knows perfectly well all of the misfortunes that come from leading, like, a charmed life, right? From leading, like, an exciting life among the heroes and the gods and what have you. And Odysseus, like Plato just basically says, like, chooses perfectly. He chooses perfectly the perfect life, a life that, is virtuous and simple and that the soul is immortal, right? Because the soul, there's no disease, there's no evil that can corrupt and break down the soul to the point in which it deteriorates, like things that evil do. So the soul should move towards, things that that beautify this immortality, that reify this immortality, and thus you should act justly in a just society. Justice sort of defined as like doing one's business, sort of like kind of like towing the line, as it were. But it's more so like knowing your place and acting accordingly within it, right? So like an artisan should be an artisan, a craftsman should be a craftsman. Someone who's good at leading should lead, right? And people who are bad at leading should not lead. And that's kind of like the point of it. Now, the way in which Socrates kind of orchestrates the state, the other state, so the best one is the aristocracy of like philosopher kings. So basically just like Socrates wants to be king, Plato wants to be king, basically. And actually in the age of Alexander, the Plutarch's Lives, I believe it's Dion who, and this is towards like the end of Plato's life. I believe Plato died before Dion was deposed. But Dion was originally, is it Dion? I forget exactly what the guy's name was, but it was a guy who lived in Syracuse in Sicily. In the 8th century BC, there were lots of Corinth, which was a Greek city-state in the Peloponnese, colonized lots of Sicily, lots of eastern Sicily. Western Sicily, I don't exactly know when the Carthaginians got there, but most of it was controlled by Carthage, especially at the time in which this life takes place. It was like sort of a west-east split, Lilybaeum versus Syracuse kind of thing. But this person was sort of exiled by the tyrant of Syracuse. Syracuse went through all these tyrants before, I guess, it was ultimately destroyed by the Romans, or taken over by the Romans. Sorry. And this person went to Greece and lived, I guess, sort of close to Athens, but went to the academy a lot. Talked to, Xenophon and Plato, who were the sort of successors to Socrates after he killed himself, after his trial. He technically killed himself. I think he was forced to kill himself because they couldn't kill him because politics, whatever. I don't exactly know the story. But Plato had this republic, and he had this philosopher king, right? Because this guy who was like he was a high-ranking official in Syracuse before he was exiled, and he was allowed to keep all of his estates and stuff, so he was a very wealthy man, and he was very popular. And the king, Dionysius II, of Syracuse, he was the tyrant at the time, and the tyrant is Plato's worst. That is the most unjust, because it goes from aristocracy to this thing called like timocracy, which is like, I guess, the rule of the honorable. Then oligarchy, which along with democracy was prominent in Greece at the time, practiced by the Spartans, and I guess Thebes maybe as well. Maybe Corinth, actually. Corinth might have been oligarchy. Oligarchy, which is the rule of money, right? And so all of these were degenerative for Plato, right? Where it's like, okay, aristocracy is perfect. The rulers are all philosophers. They practice the most perfect art of philosophy, right? Of reason, right? They rule by those alone. And then democracy is like honor, which is kind of like meritocracy, but it's not like people have duty, they have responsibility, they take responsibility, but they're feeding into pleasures which degenerate like the ultimate duty of the rulers. Because like Plato didn't think that they should be paid. They think they should be provided for, right? Their subsistence should be provided for maximally, but nothing beyond that. They shouldn't be able to like garner any money or external prestige from just doing their duty to serving the state, right? All of these things, it shouldn't be like, people talk about how like it's that thing in like The Dark Knight where Batman is like, or when I think Harvey Dent was like, when the barbarians were at the gates Rome would suspend its democracy and elect one man to defend the city. It's kind of like that sort of meme. After oligarchy, which is the rule of money, right, we're degenerating from honor to people care about money. Now we're degenerating to liberal pleasures, right? A liberation of all of these, oh my God, it hurts when I turn my head. All of these pleasures to democracy, right? Where every man is free, citizens are unbounded by duty, like you can do whatever you want. It's a very fluid situation. You can say whatever you want. There's no responsibility to a hierarchy, you know, where you are your own state onto yourself. You vote in democratic elections. And then finally to tyranny, when those libidinal impulses are maximalized into a single person who then takes it upon themselves to overshadow all other democracies. Like a democracy is like everyone is their own tyrant. And then a true tyranny is like when that is extolled beyond its limits to everybody. Everyone is under the control of one person's unbounded liberalism. You know, controlled by people who are themselves external tyrants. Anarchy, it's like fascism, right? Fascism is just like anarchy untamed. All of those Nazis were like, you know, crazy, radically unhinged, right? The stuff that was allowed under the Nazi regime, the stuff that like those people did to each other, to other people, it crazy. Unhinged, uncivilized, like complete degeneration of civilization were the Nazis. Certainly they did not maximize civilization. They weren't returning to some great age. They were completely LARPing in that regard. But yeah, the Plato thing, I'm coming up on an hour and 45 minutes. I've literally gone like an hour over my episode 0. I'm not going to go for this long, I don't think, on other, oh my God, my neck, holy shit. I can't play Melee like that anymore. I need to find some other way to do it. But, oh, there's people around now. Yeah, that was Plato's Republic, and I'm gonna sign off. Okay, bye.